Oh, yes. There's what's known as simony. Yes. Latin simonia, the payment for things spiritual. Yes. The proper name, Simon Magnus. Yes. The unlawful practice of giving or receiving money or gifts in exchange for spiritual promotion, especially the unlawful buying or selling of a benefice. Yes. For the right to present clergy to a vacant benefice. Yeah. Now, this simony is an offense which consists in the buying and selling of holy orders, and any bond or contract involving simony is illegal and void. Yes, principles of common law. Now, I've often wondered why it is that Foursquare as a denomination, yes, continues to employ Mike Van Proyn. And I thought that somebody had introduced to Christianity the similar concept of what was introduced to the elections of the United States. That you could say, well, I bought this county. Yes. And we never admit the documentation of any felony or treason. Now, let's say I went through Foursquare. Every pastor, Dave Veach, yes, as the regional superintendent or district manager, yeah, district representative, yes. Mike would say that I can buy any church in Foursquare and that would cause me to be promoted, yes, for things spiritual. Now, when I say that I want to speak to Marilyn because of my physical attraction to her, yes, my want of her wanting to volunteer, yes, and I document that Mike's been receiving my mail, poop, and then Mike has been very complicit in paying for the arrest, yes, because he only pays if I get arrested in Sequim, Washington, poop. And every time you sent a failure to appear, you sent it to his address. There's the idea, yes, that as a Republican, because Mike is very, very political. In fact, I remember trying to have conversations with him about Christianity, and he's very political. In fact, why don't you give me Mike's involvement in the Republican Party in Clallam County? His actual voting record and his endorsement, Newport. Now, for those of you that endorse candidates for office, and your endorsement means something to the individuals that listen to what you say, yes. I think Mike's been buying different churches thinking that if I own the church, I either can obligate the tithes and offerings of those that are in the congregation, yes, or I could use a look-alike that looks like Marilyn Van Proyn, but isn't it Marilee? Yes. Did you actually have any sexual relations with any individual in any congregation? Could be the way that you're doing it. Yes, you're going to come to find out. And Mike decided that he could buy things spiritual. Yes. As in, when I speak at your church, you're paying me, but I have to come to find out. So you do have to provide the prostitutes that'll be there. Now, I'm going to want all of the churches, yes, in Foursquare. Because every day I tell you, yes, that the violating any law, rule, or regulation, yes, the disclosure, known as the state employees or federal employees, yes, has an obligation to believe the evidence, right, that Mike has been violating the laws, yes, the rules, the representative rules, and the regulations necessary for elections. Now, this gross mismanagement on the part of the county, and then this waste of funds and abuse of authority, yes. I would say it's very abusive of authority, Sequim Police Department, yes, to knowingly arrest me for crime when you do know that I wasn't there on December 31st of 2015. Yeah. And then to knowingly prosecute me, Mark Nichols, yes, because you're never wrong as a police department. Poop. And then the knowing, yes, that I wasn't in Jefferson County, yes. And then using, yes, the prosecuting attorney's office for criminal complaints. And then the abuse authority of the judicial system to say that I'm incompetent to stand trial. Yes. Now, when I go through each of the churches of Foursquare, and their support of Mike Van Proyn, because everyone wanted to say I was crazy, but that is definitely a forgery. Yes. And then everyone wanted to say that I was delusional for thinking that this is not Marilyn Van Proyn. Yes. Mike is not receiving moral support from my sister Susan Bowers. Yes. That is not his wife. Yes. And that little girl may or may not be adopted from Haiti. Yes. Now, I want your churches. I want to sue every congregation and all properties that have any ownership from Foursquare or any subsidiary known as a not-for-profit. Now, there's this idea of Brent Basden being the president of a local Mormon congregation. Yes. Mhm. You have um, you have a conflict of interest. If you actually enforce my rights, even though you know the forgery, the fraud, yes, violating state and federal laws, yes, the kidnapping, the child neglect, my son's being in the wrong grades, Brent, yes, I am suing Mormon Brent for keeping you in a position of authority where you can abuse your power. Now, you cannot issue court orders, right, where you do know as a superior court, yes, that I was not given any due process. Were the minors named? Yes, their civil rights were not protected. And that they are in the wrong grades, Quilcene School District. Now, in this email, I document right now. Now, Mormons, your intellectual property, yes. There must be a way that you get paid, even though my understanding is every person that works in any Mormon ward or stake, yes, is an actual volunteer in the church, yes, that you don't really get compensated for what you do. But there was this concern that I had that possibly you baptized my deceased father, Paul Douglas Budnick, yes, because as I understand it, that's a part of your belief system, yes, that individuals after death can be redeemed, yes, and they can enter into the Mormon heaven. But if you actually baptized my deceased father, knowing what I did know about him, he would want me to completely dismantle your denomination. You know, some American citizens do not want to be baptized after they're dead. It's something we haven't talked about, yes. But there is the idea of what rights do you have after you're dead? Yes. Do you have the right to not have somebody baptize you? Yes, 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 in the proxy baptism. Do you have the right to your name, your estate? Yes. And the right to sue. Now, I was on your website, and I was real happy. I gave you my password. Yes, you did. And I found one additional document that happened to have something to do with my deceased grandfather, Edward Budnick. Yes. Did the Mormons baptize any of my deceased relatives as a part of their individual belief system? Because it's not that they would return from the dead. Yes. I'm not real big on the ancestral influence of those that have died. In fact, my thought is you're either in heaven or you're in hell, which there's not a whole lot of waiting about where you're going to get to go. And if they're in heaven, yes, they're having to watch, yes, the actual show on earth. They don't have any influence on my actual person. But there's, well, as much as we would disagree about his womanizing, his drinking, and his drug use, you'd be surprised how, if you strip off all of the actual sin of the individual, how many underneath all that sin had a lot of saint. Yes. Now, somebody said, let's sow in some addiction. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Let's cause some smokers to smoke. Yes. Let's cause alcoholism because of the use of technology. In fact, if he had a dog that was not of the actual human race, right, that was assigned to him by some very corrupt billionaires and their families, right, because he had some sort of special genetic heritage in the United States Treasury, I would sue each and every one of you Bill Gates, yes, that decided to put Gil Gates on me Because there are a few times when I did get choked and I thought, for sure, yeah, sure. Now, this members of the United States Congress that serve as federal level ombudsmen in their oversight capacity over federal agencies, yeah, it says that they employ staff specifically dedicated to legal compliance enforcement, yes, and via investigations and maladministration on behalf of constituents. Now, there's what's known as the staff. Yes, that's the sex cross of the evil father. Father. Yes. You know, when we really study Mormonism, I mean, really study it, there is a possibility that the angel Moroni, yes, from what I understand, had some sort of mystical experience with the individual that started the denomination. And then there were the gold plates that were used to add to the Latter-day Saints. Yeah. Now, somebody knows where they're at. I don't know where they're at. But let's say that some false angelic being that liked very large-breasted women, like to have lots of kids and multiple wives, had some influence in Mormonism. Now, that slimy three finger, you know, I opened a new folder in the War Crimes Drive folder called Federally Chartered Entities. Now, can you have a subsidiary as a federally chartered entity, or is that only available to corporations and not-for-profit corporations that are for profit? Because